Hi all, I'm Anthony Wilson, the Communications Director for the City of San Angelo. It is Monday, April 1st, but no fooling, we actually had a City Council meeting today. Of course, our City Council meetings are typically on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, but because the Laura W. Bush Institute has a big event planned at the Convention Center tomorrow, the City Council had its meeting today, and it was a short one. There were only 2 items on the agenda, but one of them was something of real significance. And here to talk about that is our Water Utilities Director, Allison Struby. Allison, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, today the City Council received the findings of a study about how the flow of wastewater could be improved in the Lake Nasworthy area. Tell us about what the findings of that study were.
So right now, the study showed that of that small area, about 1/16 of our total wastewater flows for the city, half of our lift stations are serving that flow. So half of our infrastructure, our mechanical pumps and force mains, all of that infrastructure is serving 1/16 of our total flow. And what we're seeing is that that system is at capacity. So it's preventing development and expansion relative to the Lake Nasworthy area. And that's not just area immediately adjacent to the lake, but it kind of spreads out further into that southwest part of town, such as the airport and those places where we are seeing limiting capacity of our wastewater. And what the council was showed today was that we've got single points of failure, or that we have several pump stations all pumping into a common force main. And what happens if that force main goes down is just not one impacted lift station, but you're talking the entire south side of the lake, or those type of impacts with our existing system. The council was presented with 2 possible alternatives, and they are completely different in price range, but they were presented those options with potential paths forward.
Now, you've used a couple of terms here that people may not be familiar with. I know they're common nomenclature in water utilities and in engineering. So explain, first of all, what a pump station is, or excuse me, a lift station, and what a force main is.
Okay, so a lift station, most of the time we like to serve our citizens with a gravity system. So as wastewater leaves your home, using gravity, it flows to our main, and then from our main all the way out to the wastewater plant where it gets treated. Sometimes the elevations don't work out, like specifically in the Lake Nasworthy area. It's very flat relative to where people's homes are located, and we just don't have the ability to utilize gravity to our advantage. So what we have to have is that where the wastewater flows into basically a wet well or a tank, where pumps are sitting, and once it gets to a certain level, those pumps pump it into a pressurized main, and then slowly that main moves that wastewater to a gravity system. But sometimes it takes several pumps, several wet wells or lift stations, if you want to call them, where they have to basically go into a tank, be pumped out again till it ultimately gets to a gravity system.
So sometimes that force main, you have to pump it from station to station till it eventually gets to a gravity main.
But with our system, most all these lift stations are pumping into the same line. And so that's where we see a lot of issues. Most systems are designed where you have a lift station pumping to its sole force main going to its gravity system. Well, what we have is several lift stations, sometimes 8 to 9 lift stations pumping into the same line. And what our consultant said today was sometimes they ran different scenarios. If all those pump stations were to be engaged at the same time, ultimately none of those pumps could pump into that line because of how they're designed, and they just couldn't overcome the amount of pressure that it takes to actually push wastewater into that line.
So is it fair to say that in decades past, when that infrastructure was built at Lake Nasworthy, I mean, it was serving a much smaller community, and now because of the development that's happened out there, it's just overwhelming the infrastructure?
Yes, that is the case.
So then explain why it's important then that we address that situation and provide more capacity at the lake and the airport and that surrounding area.
So right now, I know that the airport has a master plan going on, and they're looking at potentially doing a business park at the airport. And so to even consider that as an option or have plans to do that, we've got to have the utilities in place to provide that wastewater to get it there. And ultimately, if we don't address those utility needs, then we can't expand and build out there. And there's other parts of vacant property that I'm sure people would like to develop into homes, and it's a nice part of town for people to live in, especially if they enjoy the lake. And so we can't expand in those areas until we address those basic utility needs.
And so it's really a matter of economic development. I mean, if we want to sort of reach the maximum potential of that area, we're going to have to provide more infrastructure in order to create the jobs that people would like to see out there.
Correct. And it's not just a matter of putting new pumps, bigger pumps, those type of things. Sometimes that can even harm the system that we have today. And so what we're having to look at is possibly bringing in, one of the alternatives was to bring in a trunk main from the Chadburn and Christoval Road area where we have an existing 42-inch sewer main, and basically branching off that and bringing it, kind of following the path of the river, but bringing it up on the south side of Lake Nasworthy so that we could potentially offload some of that lift station or some of that sewer and provide for additional capacity in areas that we don't currently, and allow that sewer to get into a gravity system quicker. With that option, it was the most expensive, but we also look at the potential to take off several lift stations, which would reduce operating costs and those type of things. So there's pros and cons on both ways. And then the other alternative, the cheaper alternative, really just kind of is a status quo option. It's $9 million, but what it doesn't allow for that development like we're talking about out at the lake and especially at the airport area.
It simply improves what we've got there at the moment?
Correct.
So that's the difference between a $32 million project that's going to provide more capacity and a $9 million project that is just a Band-Aid. So tell us what the council decided or charged you to do moving forward.
So what we were looking for today was direction on if the council basically had the appetite for looking at a much higher cost, but with several other benefits.
And that's what you would recommend?
Yes, that is what I would recommend. We also get to serve other parts of town that we haven't got to potentially serve that isn't included in the $32 million, but it gives that starting point for those projects. But really, the Band-Aid itself, it doesn't, it's not what I think the council's direction or what they're looking for. And so today they authorized that we move forward with, potentially looking at how we could fund the $32 million project and just kind of the next steps forward. So they didn't authorize the use of any funds today, but what they gave us was direction and to come back to them at a later council meeting to kind of talk about how we implement this project.
So at some point in May, you'll return with some financing options for how we could accomplish that $32 million project. And at that point, they may decide if they want to actually approve the project and start moving forward with it.
Correct. Right now, they're just providing a direction is all they've provided.
And I don't want to get too far in the weeds with the projects, but one of the things that was talked about was eliminating some of the odor that can occur from our current system. And which of those options would provide, I guess, a cleaner air quality as a result?
The $32 million project has the potential to provide the reduction in those H2S or odor issues because it's getting that pressurized, pumped sewer to a gravity system quicker. It ultimately allows wastewater to not sit in the lines as long, and that's where we see that odor and corrosion issue happen, is because it's having to make its way, basically wastewater, all the way from the airport all the way up to the north side of Bentwood before it's even comes close to entering into a gravity system. And so this time it would be going through one lift station into a gravity system much quicker, which keeps those odor H2S generation from happening.
And so people are naturally going to occur, well, $32 million, that's a lot of money. Is this going to cost me anything extra? It seems to me it's maybe a little premature in order for people to start guessing as to whether or not this is going to cost them more money on their monthly utility bill.
Right. So that it is too early to make that assumption yet. So with council's direction, we're going to look at what we have available in our existing debt capacity in the wastewater side and those type of things to see if there's any grants, those type of things that could be applied to this project. And so we're going to be looking into all of those financing details a lot more thoroughly.
All right, so we have been talking with Allison Struby. She is the Water Utilities Director for the City of San Angelo. And if this conversation has interested you, then you can go to the City Council meeting, which is also posted on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, and we'll be airing twice daily on SATV to just see what the council itself had to say about this topic. Now, as I mentioned, we did meet today, April 1st, which is a Monday. Typically, we meet on Tuesdays. The City Council does. So the next meeting, we'll be back on our regular schedule. It'll be the third Tuesday in April, which will be April the 16th. So after that meeting, come to our page. We'll be debriefing you on exactly what happened during that gathering.